From this $1,000 Bionicle Mask storage bag that was literally free when it came out, to a $12,000 diorama that LEGO had nothing to do with. These are 19 of the most stupidly expensive LEGO items ever made. Up first is by far the stupidest item in this entire video. There are these things called glued models, and they're exactly what they sound like. Sets that LEGO sold glued together. This is a pretty stupid product idea on its own, but the fact that the cheapest one is worth $275 is out of this world. LEGO only ever made 4 of them, but $275 was the cheapest. So what's the most expensive one? Well, it happens to be the Legoland Dragon set, and it's worth over $650. I can't believe that LEGO ever even made sets like these, let alone the fact that they're worth so much money. But this next item is even more backwards than these glued models. This is the LEGO Castle Giant Chess set, and it's part of the LEGO Games theme, which is actually really important. This theme was only around for a few years back in the early 2000s, but the whole point of it was to build board games out of LEGO bricks. Once you did that, you had your very own LEGO board game that you could play whenever you wanted. But question for you, would any of you buy a chess set that costs over $3,000? If your answer is no, then don't even think about buying the giant chess set, because it's worth around $3,800 in today's market. See what I mean by how backwards this is? The whole point of the games theme was that you could build LEGO games and play them, but this one ended up being a collector's item, so there's no way anyone will ever get to play with it. Stuff like this happens a lot with LEGO sets, especially when it comes to the monorail sets. I'm sure you guys already know all about them, but did you know that even the parts in these sets go for insane prices? Like, there are barely any parts in this listing, and the guy's trying to sell it for $150. Now, I'm not hating on the seller or anything. Obviously, this is just the market, but isn't it nuts that they cost this much? The thing is, it doesn't stop here. One of the monorail sets is in the Unitron sub-theme, and wanna know what's crazy? The 3 other sets in Unitron have also gone up in value, simply for being in the same sub-theme as one of the monorail sets. Another random item that's insanely expensive like these is this LEGO Bionicle mask holder. Now, honestly, this is a pretty cool product. I've never really seen something like this from LEGO before, but can you guess how much people are trying to sell it for these days? Just for reference, this thing was literally free in Toys R Us stores back in 2001, but now it sells for over $1,400. Yup, you heard me right. Toys R Us was quite literally giving these things away, but I guess since they were only available once, they've gained a lot of value over the years. I gotta say, some of these prices are genuinely making me question everything I know about LEGO. But this video's just getting started, so let's move on to the next item. This is a Miles Morales minifigure. Looks pretty standard, right? It usually sells for around $4 on the aftermarket. Not bad, but let's compare it to this Miles Morales minifigure. Notice anything different about them? Don't worry, it's not a trick question. There's barely any difference between these two. That is, if we're talking about looks. Like I said, this one is worth about $4, but this one? Oh man, this one's an entirely different story. This Miles Morales minifigure in particular is worth about $2,000 sealed, but honestly, it's probably the most fairly priced item in this video. Let me explain. Basically, this guy was supposed to be a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive in 2020, but wasn't because of the Big 19. So instead, LEGO decided to release it in a PlayStation sweepstakes. This wasn't just any sweepstakes though. The only way you could have entered was if you beat the main story of Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4 and earned the endgame trophy. See what I mean now? This minifig was pretty difficult to get, especially since they made less than 2,000 of them. So even if you beat the game, odds are you weren't gonna get one of them anyway. Getting back to the stupid stuff though, did you know that a LEGO diorama sold for over $12,000 last year? And get this, LEGO as a company didn't even have anything to do with it. The people just used their bricks to make the diorama. I know that sounds a little crazy, so here's the story. This diorama was made by a company called Square Enix, a Japanese game company that's made a ton of super famous games. One of their most famous ones is Final Fantasy, and in 2023, they decided to do something special. They asked fans what they wanted to see made out of LEGO from Final Fantasy VII, and they landed on the scene where Cloud and Aerith reunite for the first time. Not too long after, Square Enix showed off the diorama and gave it away to someone on Twitter. At the time, it was only worth about $150, but seeing as how rare it was and the fact that the company who made the game designed it, it shot up in value. Over the summer last year, it sold for $12,500, which is an unbelievable amount of money. Now, I'm not too into Final Fantasy, so maybe I don't realize how cool this is, but $12,500 for a pre-built set? I mean, come on, that's highway robbery. The only thing that even comes close to being this stupid is this keychain with a white Boba Fett on it. Now, usually you can pick up Lego keychains for pretty cheap. Even the ones with the lights on them aren't too bad. But this one is apparently worth $1,500. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. $1,500 for a keychain? I don't know if I can think of a worse way to spend that much money. But this isn't the only small item like this that's way overpriced. Back before streaming services took over, Lego used to collab with movie companies and include minifigures in DVDs and Blu-ray sets. Now, you'd think the minifigure would be the thing worth a bunch of money, but that's actually not true, at least if we're talking about the Hobbit movies. The minifigure that came with these Blu-rays is Bilbo Baggins, and he's only worth around $100. Now, I know that's crazy for one singular minifigure, but when you compare it to the $440 you'd have to pay to get the Blu-rays, you might start to see where I'm coming from. This is the only Blu-ray collab that's worth this much, by the way. All the others are worth $40 or less, including a different Hobbit one that's worth $35. So I really don't get why this one gets to be so expensive. You know what? While I'm talking about movies, I might as well talk about everyone's favorite expensive minifigure, the Wood and Woo prop from the Ninjago movie. This guy needs no introduction. We all know only a few of them were ever made. We all know that they were carved out of real wood, and we all know that Jackie Chan held at least one of them in the movie. But can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that a Lego minifigure sold for over $100,000? I mean, seriously, give it up for this guy.
Yeah, what a woo, yeah, go woo. Woo, that's my baby.
This is more money than a lot of people make in a whole year, so I had no choice but to put him in this video. Some expensive Lego stuff you might not have seen before, though, comes from the Lego Star Wars theme, as usual. But it's not the traditional stuff we usually see. Back in 2007, Lego made these models with a company called Gentle Giants. They don't have a real purpose or anything, like the stuff in the games theme. They're basically just meant for decoration, but that doesn't mean they can't be worth something. All of these figures are based on characters that were in Lego Star Wars video games. They only ever made 5 of them, but since they're based on video games, you can probably guess which one is worth the most, right? It's the one from the complete saga. Shocker, I know. As sick as this guy looks, no way is he worth the $2,300 people are charging for him. I'd love to have him on my desk, but there's no way I'm paying that much money. While I'm talking about Lego Star Wars, I want to show you these things called Miniland figures. You might recognize this style from other builds like the Han Solo Tauntaun, and funnily enough, the diorama that Square Enix made. For some reason, these Miniland figures are always worth a ton of money, but these Star Wars ones in particular were pretty hard to get your hands on. You had to be at the collector's party at the International Toy Fair in New York in February of 2011, and the only way you could have gotten into this party was if Lego invited you themselves. So if you got invited, not only did you get to say that Lego invited you somewhere, but you also got these Star Wars figures that are worth over $5,000 now. That's a pretty big flex. When Lego items have time to build value, they can get pretty expensive, like this milk truck from the town theme. Lego made it all the way back in 1989, and it was actually a collab with a company called MD Foods in Denmark. There's quite literally nothing special about this truck besides the collab. So isn't it crazy that it's worth over $2,000? The funny thing is though, other stuff has gotten to a higher price in way less time, like this set from the Advanced Models theme. It came out in 2001. That's 12 years after the milk truck. And guess what? It's worth $500 more. It does have a lot going for it though. Not only is it a set of the famous Lego dragon, but it's part of a theme that's known for having expensive sets. Technically, it's in the Sculptures sub-theme, but there are only 2 other sets in this theme. One of them is the super famous Statue of Liberty set that's worth over $2,000. Lego didn't make a lot of copies of any of these sets, so combine them with the fact that they've been retired for over 20 years, and you've got yourself a perfect formula for expensive Lego sets. This can happen with literally anything Lego's made, even if it isn't a set or a minifigure, like this backpack of Wenua from Bionicle. It's a really cool backpack that I'd honestly love to have, but it was released back in 2004 and hasn't seen the light of day since then. It's so rare now that people don't even know what the retail price was. but today it's worth over $800. Obviously, this is an insane amount of money for a backpack, but it's a perfect example of how some LEGO items can be crazy investments. Another item you would have never expected to have a crazy price like this backpack is the Chief minifigure from the Rock Raiders theme. This theme was literally only around for a year, but over time, it's gotten a super big fan base. This Chief guy was only in one set, and it wasn't even a set. It was a pack with just the minifigure inside of it. Now, I know that's another perfect formula for an expensive LEGO item, but $780? I mean, come on. Who could have predicted that? But if there's one item that's worth a ton of money that makes the least amount of sense, it has to be this set from the Quattro theme. First of all, this theme was meant for kids, like young kids. The bricks were literally bigger than Duplos. But second of all, just look at this set. Why in the world would anyone want to pay almost $2,000 for it? Oh yeah, that's how much it costs, by the way. The craziest part about all of this though is the fact that the Quattro Boy figure, yeah, this one right here, is worth $950 whole dollars. You quite literally can't use this dude for anything. He was made specifically for sets in the Quattro theme. He's not compatible with regular LEGO or even Duplo. So $950 is a mind-boggling number. This one just rubs me the wrong way. Let me move on to the next item. Up next is the Marina Bay Sands set from the architecture theme. And this set was actually only sold in one country. It's based on a real building. Obviously, it's in the architecture theme. But if you don't recognize it, it's this really famous hotel in Singapore. Now, usually, LEGO doesn't region lock wherever the set is from to that country. Like, the Eiffel Tower isn't only sold in France. But for some reason, they made the Marina Bay Sands set exclusive to Singapore. Because of that, it's worth over $1,100. Oh, and it's also because they only ever made 10,000 of them. For this last item, I need to make sure you guys know what I'm talking about first. LEGO makes these things called advent calendars every year for a bunch of super famous themes. They've gotten pretty popular over the years, and since LEGO makes 1 million copies of each one, none of them are worth that much. Besides one. It's this LEGO Star Wars advent calendar from 2011, and it's worth about $875. Can you guess why? I'll give you a hint. It was given away at the one event that makes every LEGO item worth way more than it should be. Got it? Well, if you guessed the San Diego Comic-Con, congratulations, you got it right. I have no idea why LEGO decided to give away an advent calendar there in 2011. They're not even supposed to be rare, but I guess for some reason, LEGO was feeling funny that year, because now we have an advent calendar that's worth almost $1,000. But what item surprised you the most in this video? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.